Good morning. It's 2/24/2022. This is episode 10, 0010 of the Pondering Infinity webcast. I'm going to try to start every episode in a similar fashion. Please like, subscribe, and share if you find any of this content valuable. I really appreciate it. My numbers are growing slowly, but they're growing, so that's a good direction. Okay, so I'm going to get right into the markets. Bitcoin is 36,464.01. XRP is up to 66 cents. XLM is 17.59. Doge is 12.05. The Dow is down again, 32,562.05. NASDAQ is up 13,129.92. S&P 500 is down 41.93.38. Crude oil is up to 95.49. Gold is 19.17 even, and silver is 31.32. I'm going to do a quick news recap of a couple of things going on. Most of this happened within the last 24 hours or so. I heard on the news. So coming home, I heard the Russia invaded the Ukraine, and on the news it said that oil prices had broken $100 a barrel, I guess overnight, and that's the highest it's been since 2014. They said there's likely to be gas price increases coming and global supply chain issues because of the oil. And so I think it was yesterday, Angela is a hospice nurse, and she came home and she said that there's the supply chain. She didn't say it in those words, but basically there's a problem. They can't get durable medical equipment. They can't get the right oxygen concentrators because they're just not out there. Nobody has them. And medicine too. She can't get some medicine to help alleviate the pain of these dying patients, make their last days more comfortable because of supply chain issues. So it's really hitting home with everything that's going on in COVID. We, as everybody knows, we have the highest inflation rate since 1982, with unemployment at an all-time low. So there's something that just doesn't make any sense to me. And I've spoken before about I think I have about the nurses going to the hospital with Elijah. There's a nurse shortage. I think we all know that. And there's just unemployment. Like, I can't get anybody to work night shift. Just nobody's applying. Nobody's coming around. But I heard on the news that there's a teacher shortage now, along with all the other nonsense going on with the education system. There's a teacher shortage. So they're recruiting bus drivers in some areas to come in and be substitute teachers. And then one state, I think that said New Mexico, was actually bringing in the National Guard because there's a teacher shortage. So they're bringing in National Guardsmen as substitute teachers. And then also on the news, they said their COVID passports there's a COVID passport legislation in front of the Georgia Assembly, I think it said. I'm not sure what that is, but I guess I need to look into it. And then the news, Scott Slade on the news said test kits that he ordered 7 weeks ago, the COVID test kits are actually, he received it, or it's shipping, or he got notification or something like that. So people are still immersed in this. And then on the news, they also said child poverty spikes because the Joe Biden's Build Back Better program stalled in Congress, and it got me thinking. Don't the Democrats have a majority in Congress? I thought that was maybe they need more than a majority to alleviate poverty or do what's right for the people. But how come this is failing now and inflation's so high and oil prices are going through the roof? What's going on out there? So that was just the news in the last 24 hours. Oh, funny story, actually, too. Yesterday, before work, I was editing a video for today, and let me take these off. I was doing it remotely, so I was on my laptop, and my desktop is at home. And Angela told me this morning that yesterday the boys went to the gym. Morgan was at work, and she went out into the garage and opened the door and heard a man's voice from behind her, and she started freaking out. I didn't realize that it was playing through my speakers at my desk, and it scared the hell out of her. It's kind of funny. And then last night at work, one of my colleagues has a bunch of cameras set up around his house on motion sensors that trip a floodlight and then start recording. So apparently one of his neighbors, a couple of his neighbors' calves got loose through the gate and were walking around and just destroying his yard. Hoof prints everywhere. He's at work freaking out. Oh, look at them. There's hoof prints everywhere. And just knocking wood piles over and just wreaking havoc on his yard. And he's fixing up his house. He's in the middle of construction, so so he gets on his camera. It's a two-way communication, and he starts going, get out of here, come on. Trying to scare these cows to go, but it didn't work. And they just destroyed it. It's not funny, but it was funny. He's laughing. This time it's not silly humans, it's silly cows. Well, it is silly humans. He was pretty silly. So I have been, I guess this is the first of many episodes where I think in episode 9 I laid out this theory on the scientists, and it, just to recap it, I had said there are 3 levels, and I reverse the order. So level 2 is people, scientists, scientific community doing research, making advancements to better life today, whether it's machines at doing mundane jobs. You could say the Tesla bot, or that's not really today, no. But machines doing things to help people do their jobs better, live better lives. Level 1 is the scientists that are working towards the future, Elon Musk and AI, Tesla, self-driving cars, self-driving mode. And then level 0 is, the theoretical people that are contributing absolutely nothing. The Neil deGrasse Tysons, the theoretical physicists. Not that it's not important. I just want to qualify that. It's just they're getting away with a lot and contributing a little. And I just would like some scientists to defend that. Defend your position. just let's talk about it. And that this idea is illustrated in this series of videos that I'm going to go through. So I'm breaking down some of the interviews that Lex did, and I have little snippets, and I'm going to come back and discuss them. But I wanted to add a level 3 to that, and that's the frontline workers. So these are the workers, Angela, the nurses, the doctors on the front line, whether they're pro-COVID or anti-COVID, whatever, the doctors that are helping people live better lives today in the people's minds. It may not be right, wrong, whatever it is, that's up for discussion, but living better lives. And then I would also include, any technology or anything like that in level 3, the people that are working on the front lines. So I'm going to post video links to all these videos because I am taking these. Okay, I had Angela came home and started this whole chain of events going on. So she came home. I just paused the video. I'm restarting it now. So she just came home, and she came running upstairs and said that the Ukraine and what's going on, and gas prices are going up, and where she was up north in North Georgia, gas has already gone from $3.50 to $4.20. So she came home and she wanted to make sure that Ethan and I had gas, just in case it goes up to $7, like they're saying. So I paused the thing, paused the video, and went with Ethan to the gas station. And so on the way to the gas station, this is crazy how everything is tying together. But Eric Erickson was on the radio, and he was describing Biden as frail and mentally deficient. And I mean, this is a conservative, granted, but he's a Christian. He's bashing Biden, so he said you may not like it, but it's true. And then going back to Obama, that's when we started showing weakness we would let go of control of the country. So it got me thinking, kind of in line with the conspiracy theories. There's all sorts of conspiracy theories, and one of them is the 25th Amendment coming into play. Trump alluded to it, and so is this an opportunity for the 25th Amendment to be implemented and put Kamala in power, on the longer timeline? But that's something. So while we were at the gas station, I was getting gas, and Ethan looked down on the rail and saw a sticker. So I took a picture of it. Let's see, here it is. F Biden and F you for voting for him. It's on the rail of the gas station. So then Ethan, we started talking, and he said, "Have you heard about Chief Keef?" And I'm like, "I don't even know what you're talking about." So he started explaining to me something about Chief Keef is a rapper, and he made a song back in 2010 that says something like, "If you badmouth Chief Keef, I'm going to beat your ass," or something like that. And then there's memes going around that, Russia just said Chief Keef is, disrespected him, and now the army is laughing, and they're sending Chief Keef to go take care of Russia. I didn't really understand what he was saying until he tried to explain it to me, but he kept saying Chief Keef gonna do the lyrics of the song, and I didn't understand what he was saying. So came home and had him explain it to Angela, and she didn't understand it at first. And then once we put it into context, Chief Keef apparently is today's one of the most popular street rappers for the kids today. So, I guess, and he's in a gang, so he's gonna go over and just beat their ass. Ange thought it was trying to say that because Joe Biden is inept, we're going to send this guy over. I guess that's one interpretation of it. But I came up here to restart the podcast, and they were downstairs talking about Angela saying, "Oh, if Trump were still in office, none of this would be happening." And she's very, she tends to stay out of politics in general, except when, I don't know, when she's bashing. I mean, she doesn't like to talk about politics, but when it's, I guess, Biden, she walks around and says he's, you can see it in his face. He's senile or something. He had a stroke or something like that. Something's not right with him, and she sees it as a hospice nurse. So, it just sends the Chief Keef over to take care of this whole thing in Joe Biden's place. I don't know. So we tried calling Morgan. She's at work, and then as I'm up here, before I started the recording back up, she called back. She didn't get my voicemail, but she said she was at the gas station getting gas. I said, "Oh, well, that's why I left the voicemail, to make sure you fuel up in case, Mom was worried about you driving home tomorrow and having gas." And she said, "Yeah, I'm at the gas station." So I said, "Oh, well, Mom said the gas was going up. It's up to $4.20 up north." And she said, "Oh, she just got it for $3.30. I said, "Well, I just filled up. I paid $3.70 in Canton." So I don't know if it's going to be any more like, I guess what got me, the whole thing got me thinking when the what was the Colonial Pipeline got hacked, and we had all those gas problems, the crisis, right? Gas prices went up, but like people were freaking out. But it didn't. I don't think they went up that much, and we got it under control very quickly. But I seem to remember when Trump was president that we were energy independent. We didn't have to worry about. So did we give away all our oil reserves, or are we just not using it, or are we not producing the same amount? Because I know Biden shut down the XL pipeline. Why is nobody holding him accountable for all these actions, including scientists, or why are our gas prices going up because Russia invaded Ukraine? If we're energy independent, I think I left off with the video. So I'm going to post the video links because, yes, I am taking these out of context, these clips out of context, and in some cases out of order from the interview. But I think I'm going to try to give a little bit of a backstory before each clip, and what they were speaking to directly. But I think it's applicable across the board, and that's why it's okay, I think, to take it out of context. And if not, then maybe they'll contact me and defend themselves. So I got a couple of videos. I'm going to lead into it. So the first one is so this is Garry Nolan is a professor at Stanford University School of Medicine. His research in microbiology, immunology, biocomputation, and analysis of UFO artifacts, materials, and reports of UFO encounters. So this is a researcher, an academic, and a professor. And I got 3 clips of him. His are short clips, but he's a scientist, a level 0 scientist, in my opinion. And this dude, if you watch the entire interview, in my opinion, he's the most arrogant, passive-aggressive, arrogant person that I've seen interviewed. But here's the first one. This is talking about the scientific community.
So the number of scientists who know that there's something else going on is much larger than the scientific community would like to think.
So in that clip, he was talking about UFOs specifically, and he's done research on artifacts. I don't know I forget what kind, if he was dealing with genes, or he identified what thought were to be alien remains as human. So he's doing all this research. So he's saying the scientific community, more people know what's going on than let on. So just keep that in mind and apply that same principle to everything else that I'm going to talk about. So that's a scientist saying that. The scientists know more than they're telling everybody else. This next clip is Lex on fear-mongering going on. Lex is, I have his, let me go to the browser. This is Lex. Lex is, I'm going to post a link to his YouTube channel. These are great interviews, but this is Lex Fridman. He's a professor at MIT. Here's Tim Urban, who I'm going to talk about. This is where I got the excerpts, most of the excerpts from this video right here. Here's Garry Nolan, and then I also have Manolis Kellis. He's in 4 episodes, but the one I was talking about, I'll put a link into it, into the description, so you can check it out if you want to. But this next clip is Lex on fear-mongering.
I'm a little suspicious of the amount of fear-mongering going on. Especially over the past couple of years, I've gotten uncomfortable with fear-mongering in all walks of life. There's way too many people interested in manipulating the populace with fear. And so I don't like it. I should probably do a deep dive, because to me it's the big problem with the opposition to climate change, or whatever the fear-mongering, is that it also grows the skepticism in science broadly. It's like, and that, so I need to make sure I do that deep dive. I have listened to a few folks who kind of criticize the fear-mongering and all those kinds of things, but they're few and far in between. And so it's like, all right, what is the truth here? And it feels lazy, but it also feels like it's hard to get to there's a lot of kind of activists talking about idea versus sources of objective, calm, first principles type reasoning. One of the things, I know it's supposed to be a very big problem, but when people talk about catastrophic effects of climate change, I haven't been able to see really great deep analysis of what that looks like in 10, 20, 30 years, rising sea levels. What are the models of how that changes human behavior, society? What are the things that happen? There's going to be constraints on the resources, and people are going to have to move around. This is happening gradually. Are we going to be able to respond to this? How would we respond to this? What are the best what are the best models for how everything goes wrong?
So it's Lex talking about fear-mongering and climate change in that case. And so one of the things that was interesting to me was that for how long have we been saying climate change is there? We know, he mentioned long-term effects, and this is gradual, but we've been able to measure climate change for the past however many, decades we've been doing it, and it's been a concern. Don't we have the data to analyze how it's changed up to this point? So where is science in all this? If climate change is settled, but you have a scientist, an AI scientist, that hasn't seen conclusive evidence one way or the other, and he's reading science journals, and he's up on. He hasn't done a deep dive, he said, but superficially, he hasn't seen anything supporting climate change in the scientific community. And this next one is Tim Urban. This is also having to do with climate change. Tim Urban is an author and illustrator of the popular blog Wait But Why. So he's not a scientist, but he's talked to scientists. He's talking to Lex. He's talked to Elon Musk. He's in that field. So this is Tim Urban on climate change.
The amount of really smart people I respect who seem to have dug in, who all say nuclear power is clearly a good option. It's obviously emission free, but the concerns about meltdowns and waste they say are completely overblown. So, judging from those people, secondary knowledge here, I will say I'm a strong advocate. I haven't done my own deep dive yet, but it does seem like a little bit odd that you've got people who are so concerned about climate change, who have, it seems like it's kind of an ideology where nuclear power doesn't fit, rather than rational, fear of climate change that somehow is anti-nuclear power. It just...
So that was climate change with regard to nuclear power, and presumably the emissions and whatever. Which reminded me, on the way back from the gas station, on the radio, they were talking about Chernobyl is in Kyiv. I guess that's pronounced Kyiv now, not Kiev. Chernobyl, which is the capital of Ukraine, I think. Chernobyl's in there, which was decommissioned in '86 after the meltdown. But they said that there's if Russia starts firing missiles at it, they could. It's encased in concrete, of course, but they could puncture the holding tank and spew radioactive waste into the atmosphere in Europe. So I just thought that was an interesting aside that they just happened to throw out on the news. That, besides the fact that we're issuing stronger sanctions, and I understand Ukraine's not a NATO country. I understand why we're not going in there, but what's the point of all of this? Is it to show it? Is it to illustrate how weak Joe Biden is, or? I just thought that was interesting. And then so that was climate change, and this is Tim Urban again, talking about higher mind versus primitive mind.
We need to be able to have our wits about us as a species, where we can actually get into a topic like that and come up with where the collective brain can be smart. I think that there are certain topics where I think of this, and this is again another simplistic model, but I think it works. Is that there's a higher mind and a primitive mind, right? You can in your head, and these team up with others. So when the higher minds are in a higher mind is more rational and puts out ideas that it's not attached to, and so it can change its mind easily because it's just an idea, and the higher mind can get criticized. Their ideas can get criticized, and it's no big deal. And so when the higher minds team up, it's like all these people in the room like throwing out ideas and kicking them, and one idea goes out and everyone criticizes it, which is like shooting bows and arrows at it, and the true ideas, the arrows bounce off, and so okay, it rises up, and the other ones get shot down. So it's this incredible system. This is what good science institution is someone puts out a thing, criticism arrows come at it, and most of them fall, and the needle is in the haystack end up rising, right? Incredible mechanism. So what's happening is a bunch of flawed medium scientists are creating super intelligence. Then there's the primitive mind, which is the more limbic system-y part of our brain. It's the part of us that is very much not living in 2021. It's living many tens of thousands of years ago, and it does not treat ideas like this separate thing. It identifies with its ideas. It only gets involved when it finds an idea sacred. It starts holding an idea sacred, and it starts identifying. So what happens is they team up too. And so when you have a topic that really rouses a bunch of primitive minds, it it quickly, the primitive minds team up and they create an echo chamber where suddenly no one can criticize this. And in fact, if it's powerful enough, people outside the community, no one can criticize it. We will get your paper retracted. We will get you fired. Right? That's not higher mind behavior. That is crazy primitive mind. And so now what happens is the collective becomes dumber than an individual, dumber than a single reasoning individual. You have this collective is suddenly attached to this sacred scripture with the idea, and they will not change their mind, and they get dumber and dumber. And so climate change, what's worrisome, is that climate change has in many ways become a sacred topic, where if you come up with a nuanced thing, you might get branded a denier.
Yes.
So there goes the super intelligence. All the arrows, no arrows can be fired. Yeah. But if you get called a denier, that's a social penalty for firing an arrow at a certain orthodoxy, right? And so what's happening is the big brain gets like frozen, right, and it becomes very stupid. Now, you can also say that about a lot of other topics right now. You just mentioned another one. I forget what it was, but that's also kind of like this.
The vaccine.
Yeah, COVID. Okay, and here's my point earlier: is that what I see is that the political divide is like a whirlpool that's pulling everything into it, and in that whirlpool, thinking is done with the primitive mind tribes. And so I get, okay, obviously something like race, right? That makes sense. That also right now, the topic of race, for example, or gender, these things are in the whirlpool. But that at least is like, okay, that's something that the primitive mind would always get really worked up about. It taps into like our deepest kind of like primal selves. COVID, make this COVID in a way too, but climate change, like that should just be something that our rational brains are like, let's solve this complex problem. Yeah. But the problem is that it's all gotten sucked into the red versus blue whirlpool. And once that happens, it's in the hands of the primitive minds. And we're losing our ability to be wise together, to make decisions. Where it's like the big species brain is like, or the big American brain is like drunk at the wheel right now. And we're about to go into a future with more and more big technologies, scary things. We have to make big right decisions, and not, we're getting dumber as a collective, and that's part of this environmental problem.
So within the space of technologists and the space of scientists, we should allow the arrows. That's one of the saddest things to me about is like the scientists. Like I've seen arrogance. There's a lot of mechanisms that maintain the tribe. It's the arrogance. It's how you built up this mechanism that defends this wall that defends against the arrows. It's arrogance, credentialism, like just ego, really. And then it protects you from actually challenging your own ideas, this ideal of science that makes science beautiful in a time of fear and in a time of division created by perhaps politicians that leverage the fear. It, like you said, makes the whole system dumber. The science system dumber, the tech developer system dumber if they don't allow the challenging of ideas.
So that was did that not sound like a lot of academic and scientific cancel culture? To me it did. If you're not allowing the introduction of opposing ideas like we have running rampant everywhere, but science isn't immune. They just squelch opposing ideas by, falling back and saying, "Well, we're scientists. We have science on our side," but nothing is proven. And then when you politicize, I think I mentioned the other episode. There's political science and politicized science. So when you politicize science, like COVID, like climate change, you get your paper retracted if you speak out against it. So Lex is saying allow the arrows of discussion and debate, and let your idea fend for itself, but don't take it personally. And I think a lot of people should be looking at it from this perspective. There's whatever you're involved with, your any ideas. If you're Trump or anything you want to talk about, separate the higher mind from your primitive mind and disassociate your ideas from you, because that's not you. So allow your ideas to be critiqued and defend them on their merits, just like everybody else should be doing. And then Lex mentioned some of the things with arrogance, credentialism, and ego. And ego, Neil deGrasse Tyson, his nonsense. I mean, I'm going to post a couple of videos from him talking about Apophis. I still haven't heard anybody talking about it. It seems like it would be concerning to the scientific community, but then again, they're all in their little echo chamber. So looking at, speaking of arrogance, like I said, this Garry Nolan is arrogance. Now this next clip is him defending his beliefs against opposing theories, and how it's okay to squelch people if you're in a scientific community, but you can't have the facts on your side and entertain opposing theories, or you get canceled. So here's Garry Nolan.
You're wanting to take something off the table that might be an explanation. How is that the scientific method?
How is that the scientific method? You should be open to criticism and critique and contradiction, and defend your ideas on its merits. So going back to just, I guess trying to tie all this together, going back to, this is an echo chamber. So this is Tim Urban on echo chambers, and what he describes as the opposite of an echo chamber. So I think it's important that we escape the echo chambers. Just listen to this and we'll talk about it.
In a normal environment, you're always going to have echo chambers. And so what's the opposite of an echo chamber? I created a term for it because I think we need it, which is called an idea lab. An idea lab, right? It's like people act like scientists, even if they're not doing science. They just treat their ideas like science experiments, and they toss them out there, and everyone disagrees. And disagreement is like the game. Everyone likes to disagree. On a certain text thread where everyone is just, saying, it's almost like someone throws something out and just as an impulse for the rest of the group to say, I think you're being like overly general there, or I think like, aren't you kind of being? I think that's like your bias showing. And it's like no one's getting offended because it's like we're all just messing. We all, of course, respect each other. Obviously, we're just trashing each other's ideas, and that the whole group becomes smarter. You're always going to have idea labs and echo chambers, right, in different communities, and most of us participate in both of them. And maybe in your marriage is a great idea lab. You love to disagree with your spouse, and maybe but this group of friends or your family at home, in front of that sister, you do not bring up politics because she's now enforced. When that happens, her bullying is forcing the whole room to be an echo chamber. Yeah. To appease her. Now, what scares me is that usually you have these things existing kind of in bubbles, and usually there's they each have their natural defenses against each other. So an echo chamber person stays in their echo chamber. They don't like they will cut you out. They don't like to be friends with people who disagree with them. You notice that they will cut you out. They'll cut out their parents if they voted for Trump or whatever, right? So that's how they do it. They will say, I'm going to stay inside of an echo chamber safely. So my ideas, which I identify with, because my primitive mind is doing the thinking, are not going to ever have to get challenged because it feels so scary and awful for that to happen. But if they leave and they go into an idea lab environment, people are going to say, what? No, they're going to disagree. And they're going to say, and the person's going to try to bully them. They're going to say, that's really offensive. And people are going to say, no, it's not. And they're going to immediately say, these people are assholes, right? So the echo chamber person, it doesn't have much power once they leave the echo chamber. Likewise, the idea lab person, they have this great environment, but if they go into an echo chamber where everyone else is, and they do that, they will get kicked out of the group. They will get branded as something, a denier or a racist, a right-winger, a radical, these nasty words. The thing that I don't like right now is that the echo chambers have found ways to forcefully expand into places that normally have a pretty good immune system against echo chambers, like universities, like science journals, places where usually it's like there's a strong Idea Lab culture. They're veritas, that's an Idea Lab slogan. You have is that these people have found a way a lot of people have found a way to actually go out of their thing and keep their echo chamber by making sure that everyone is scared, because they can punish anyone, whether you're in their community or not.
So that was pretty powerful if you consider this. So a conspiracy theory is a theory that people are conspiring to promote. It doesn't necessarily have to be bad. So I wanted to take a quick detour and look at what conspiracy theory means. So just breaking it down, conspiracy. So we'll start with theory. So theory, the definition, a plausible or scientifically acceptable general principle or body of principles offered to explain phenomena. When you look at a theory, you're proposing general principle. And so conspiracy is conspiring. So to act in harmony towards a common end. So arguably you could say COVID is a conspiracy theory because it's a theory of how it started, say, and people are coming together towards a common end to try to prove or disprove a theory. But the plausibility of that theory is where the ambiguity is. But you could also say, the multiverse is a theory, or much of science. There's a lot of theories in science, and people are conspiring, acting in harmony towards a common end. So science arguably is a conspiracy theory. I would suggest that it may be the biggest conspiracy theory, just based on some of these things. The science is settled on so many things, yet they're just assumptions being made, and we have no way to prove or disprove any of it. So how is that any different than any other theory, except for the fact that science is behind pushing those theories, but they still have no idea whatsoever. So there, in and of itself, is science is an echo chamber, because all these scientists are talking amongst each other and supporting each other's theories and closing out the bubble of arrows that they, we can't shoot down scientific ideas, and we don't hold them accountable to defend them, these level 0 scientists. So, they have... So he said the Idea Lab disagreement is the game. You try to seek out disagreement in opposing opinions and opposing theories. If your theory can hold water on its own, then you should be able to defend it. Whether it's a conspiracy theory, the traditional conspiracy theories, or whether it's science or politics. If you stand behind your reasoning, and that maybe in another video clip I have, but so that when you're in an Idea Lab, you hold mutual respect for one another, and you're just shooting down ideas. But when you're in an echo chamber, whether that's Congress or politics or Trump or any other conspiracy theory or science, when you're in the echo chamber, you're hearing each other. It's confirmation bias. You're reinforcing each other. You're not allowing any other opposing views to come in, or you cancel whatever that means to that person. Cancel that person. When we're just trying to challenge one another's ideas to increase the collective mind intelligence, like he was talking about. So get out, escape the echo chamber, and get into an idea lab, and don't take your ideas personally. And this goes, for everybody, colleges, and what they were saying is that universities, the Veritas, but universities have been echo chambers for decades. It's just never the science side. It's always been viewed as the liberal side of schools and professors and tenure, but science has always been exempt from scrutiny in all these universities because it's science and you can't challenge science. Well, I'm challenging science. Step up and let's set this straight. So here is Garry Nolan again talking about. He's defending his analysis of UFOs and against opposing theories, and this is part of where his arrogance comes in. But this is him.
Why is it wrong to ask questions about this area? What's wrong with asking the question? Frankly, you're the person who's wrong for trying to stop these questions. You're the person who's almost acting like a cultist. Mm-hmm. You basically have closed your mind to what the possibilities are.
So who's guilty of that? I think a lot of us are closing our minds to possibilities of one thing or another because it fits our narrative. But really, to get smarter and to get better as a whole, we need to open that up. We need to invite discussion and debate, and let our arguments and our position defend it, and don't just don't threaten to cancel people, and don't be afraid to put your stuff out there. And this is I think this is the final clip. Oh no, it's not. This is Tim Urban talking about everyone is 0.5, which is just, you'll understand in a minute.
I think I always knew this, but it's easy to forget it. Our primitive brain does not remember this fact, which is that I don't think there are very many bad people. Now, you say bad, are there selfish people? Most of us, I think I think that if you think of people, there's digital language is ones and zeros. And our primitive brain very quickly can get into the land where everyone's a one or a zero. Our tribe, we're all ones. We're perfect. I'm perfect. My family is that other family, is that other tribe. There are zeros, and then you dehumanize them, right? These people are awful. So zero is not a human place. No one's a zero, and no one's a one. You're dehumanizing yourself. So when we get into this land, I call it political Disney world. Because the Disney movies are good guys. Scar is totally bad and Mufasa is totally good, right? You don't see Mufasa's character flaws. And you don't see Scar's upbringing that made him like that humanizes him. No, lionizes him, whatever. You are...
well done.
Yeah. Mufasa's a 1 and Scar's a 0. Very simple.
Yeah.
So political Disney world is a psychological place that all of us have been in. And it can be religious Disney world. It can be national Disney world and war, whatever it is. But it's a place where we fall into this delusion that there are protagonists and antagonists, and that's it, right? That is not true. We are all 0.5s, or maybe 0.6s to 0.4s in that. We are also, on one hand, it's not. I don't think there's that many really great people, frankly. I think if you get into it, people are kind of, a lot of people, most of us have, if you get really into our most shameful memories, the things we've done that are worse, the most shameful thoughts, the deep selfishness that some of us have in areas we wouldn't want to admit, right? Most of us have a lot of unadmirable stuff, right? On the other hand, if you actually really got into someone else's brain, and you looked at their upbringing, you looked at the trauma that they've experienced, and then you looked at the insecurities they have, and you look at all their, if you assembled a highlight reel of your worst moments, the meanest things you've ever done, the worst, the most selfish, the times you stole something, whatever, and you just people think, wow, Lex is an awful person. If you did a montage of your best moments, people would say, oh, he's a god, right? But of course, we all have both of those. So I've started to really try to remind myself that everyone's a 0.5, right? And 0.5s are all worthy of criticism, and we're all worthy of compassion. And the thing that makes me hopeful is that I really think that There's a bunch of point fives, and point fives are good enough that we should be able to create a good society together. There's a lot of love in every human, and I think there's more love in humans than hate. I always remember this moment. This is a weird anecdote, but I'm a Red Sox fan, Boston Red Sox baseball, and Derek Jeter is who we hate the most. He's on the Yankees.
Yes.
And hate, right? Ugh, Jeter, right? He was his last game in Fenway. He's retiring, and he got this rousing standing ovation, and I almost cried. And it was like, what is going on? We hate this guy, but actually, there's so much love in all humans. It felt so good to just give a huge cheer to this guy we hate, because it's like this moment of like a little fist pound, being like, of course we all actually love each other. And I think there's so much of that.
Yeah.
So that was him talking about the tribes, and everybody's a 0.5. I hope that was easy to understand what he was saying about the ones and zeros. But basically, everybody is in this together. We're all in this together. We don't need to be pitting against each other in our tribes, Republicans, Democrats, whatever it is, whatever echo chamber it is, whatever, come together for humanity's sake. I thought it was interesting. I just realized this when I was listening to that clip. He said Disney World. I thought it was interesting because Disneyland, I don't know, I know Disneyland's older, but I don't know how much older, but he didn't say political Disneyland. I don't know if it was on purpose, or if, world is more encompassing, then would it have the same impact if he would have said political Disneyland? Because we're living in the world, we're not living in the land. I just thought that was interesting. So this final clip is one of my favorite interviewees that Lex has done, and this is talking about this is Dr. Manolis Kellis, and I'll put a link to the video that this came from. But he is a professor at MIT and the head of MIT Computational Biology Group. He is interested in understanding the human genome from the computational, evolutionary, biological, and other cross-disciplinary perspectives. I really enjoy listening to this guy. He's very well-rounded and broad, not just with science, but music, and those are great interviews, and he's very wise. And this is speaking to how similar we actually are, and what doesn't. All this conflict and infighting and echo chambers just doesn't make any sense. But here's Dr. Kellis.
Let me ask, you kind of took a step back to the genome outside of just humans, but is there something that you find beautiful about the human genome specifically?
So I think the genome, if more people understood the beauty of the human genome, there would be so many fewer wars, so much less anger in the world. I mean, what's really beautiful about the human genome is really the variation that teaches us both about individuality and about similarity. So any two people on the planet are 99.9% identical. How can you fight with someone who's 99.9% identical to you? It's just counterintuitive. That's, I think, something that teaches us about sort of the nature of humanity in many ways, that every one of us is as unique as any star, and way more unique in actually many ways. And yet, we're all brothers and sisters.
We're all brothers and sisters, 99.9% identical. How are we fighting all this amongst each other, besides the fact that we're being manipulated, we're being controlled by certain groups? And I don't mean to sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist, but the government is not necessarily on our side. The politicians, they're human, and they act in selfish ways, and whatever's happening geopolitically across the world, even down to the school board. I just saw a video of a school board member somewhere, I forget where it was, but she was at a school board meeting and she went after one of the members on the school board for not wearing a mask. Yet a year ago, they were attacked for not wearing a mask because they were anti-mask, I guess, in the meeting. And now she didn't want to be attacked for violating, for breaking her own, do as I say, not as I do. But where's science in all this? Why can we not have science step up and say, COVID is settled, climate change is settled, much the way that they were talking about in all these clips? The scientific community, are they in an echo chamber or are they in an idea lab? Are they contributing to the collective intelligence, or are they detracting from it because they're not coming out and not settling the science so we can move on to bigger and better things? These level 0 scientists offer no contribution to the discussion. They just exist in their echo chambers and put down once and for all anything that they want to put down, but they need the controversy in order to continue to getting the grant money. And if I'm wrong, I would love just some scientists to come up and defend this position. But until then, they're no different than any other conspiracy theorists with their conspiracy theories. And we need to hold them accountable in order to make our lives better. So if you enjoyed this content, I'm gonna make a couple of. I think I kind of like doing this, cobbling together some video clips and then maybe talking about it. I'd love to do one about the Tic Tac, the alien. That'd be kind of cool. But if you have any suggestions or would like to hear a topic, please contact me. You can get on the website, or if you find this fun, please like, subscribe, and share my videos. I'm trying to grow the channel. Perry's up there hanging out this whole time. I'm gonna go ahead and get this edited and uploaded. This was episode 10 of the Pondering Infinity webcast. Until next time, live a good life.